Welcome to Legal Innovation Spotlight, the podcast that brings you the latest advancements in legal tech and knowledge management. I'm Ted Theodoropoulos, and I connect with the industry's brightest minds to provide you with valuable insights and actionable takeaways. So sit back, relax, and let's dive in. Mr. Dave Boland, how are you, sir?
Doing great. How are you doing today, Ted?
I'm doing good. I appreciate you joining us this morning. And today we're going to talk a little bit about knowledge management at Ogletree and some of the journey that you've been on since you took over several years ago. But before we get started, why don't you introduce yourself? I think you got an interesting background. Most CKOs have kind of come up the ranks in legal, and your background's a little different. So if you wouldn't mind taking a minute or two and telling us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely, Ted. I appreciate that. I think I probably do have a little bit of a unique background for the legal knowledge management space. I actually started my career in the public accounting space. I was started as an auditor and moved into the consulting business with Arthur Andersen back in the day. And so really cut my teeth on client service and learned a lot about process. That has over the years been a great benefit to me personally. It's at Arthur Andersen that I got introduced to knowledge management, originally as part of that business consulting practice. And then from there moved over to Deloitte to start up an industry knowledge management program that had a strong focus on business development, marketing, sales, how the firm went to market, and was spent a good 14, 15 years there at Deloitte, which was a great experience. And then from there, became the chief knowledge officer at Grant Thornton, again in that same professional services space around consulting, tax, audit capabilities. And so in June of 2020, to come here to the legal profession here at Ogletree Deakins, there were some similarities. Certainly the the hyper focus on meeting your clients' needs, definitely is a consistent theme in focus for knowledge management, and then also, solving problems using knowledge management principles. But it has been an absolute delight to begin to learn about the legal industry and some of the unique challenges that exist. And to be able to apply that experience that I had prior to the legal industry, focused in a new way, but again, pointed at trying to serve our clients and meet the needs of our firm employees and shareholders.
Yeah, so June of 2020, that's an interesting time to make a move. There were a few things going on in the world then. But you guys, you've had great success. The last episode that we recorded was with David Ruff from Baker Donaldson and Patrick Domenico, formerly in your role.
That's right.
Now he's doing his own thing with Inspire KM and has a conference called the KM and I. It's going to be in New York. But the topic of conversation was around innovation, the rise of innovation teams in legal. And, from an outsider, I've never worked in a law firm, like you. I came from outside of legal. I was an entrepreneur in the 90s. I spent the 2000s in financial services at Bank of America, wore all kinds of hats.
Right.
I was a Six Sigma black belt, learned a lot about process engineering. And then in the late 2000s, early 2010s, started this business. But as an outsider, I look at, this massive push towards innovation in legal. And, I see a lot of the same people, but with different titles. And we dug into, okay, is this really the same people and roles, but just with different names? Or is this fundamentally different? And I think it's an interesting topic to explore in getting to know how firms like Ogletree Deakins, how they define KM and like what's in and out of scope. Is innovation a subset of KM? Is it a superset of KM? Is it a peer to KM? if you wouldn't mind, like tell us a little bit about how you guys define KM at OD.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'll maybe just maybe speak to a little bit about, is KM equal to innovation, or is there a big distinction? And I probably don't draw, in fact, I don't draw a big line between those terms of knowledge management and innovation. And there's several reasons why. Dating even back to my time at Deloitte, knowledge management was part of a broader construct that was also focused on innovation. And so that connection has always been, at least from my earliest experiences, has always been very strong. Similar to my experience at Grant Thornton, knowledge management and innovation were really two sides of the same coin. When I peel back knowledge management, and maybe this is because of some of my consulting background, it really is about problem solving. What are the challenges that we're experiencing today? What are the pain points? Where do we have friction? Where are we falling short? And then how do we take, in my world, knowledge management principles, tools, technology, innovative way to solve those problems? It really is two sides of the same coin. So I personally don't draw a big distinction on, was that an innovation initiative or is that a knowledge management initiative? It's all about solving problems and delivering value to our clients. And so I think I don't get too wrapped up in trying to draw that distinction, and that may be different at other organizations. But here, knowledge management and innovation, I would tell you, is really more synonymous. It's one and the same. And hopefully, our intent is to always be thinking creatively, innovatively about the things that we're doing and the problems that we're trying to solve. Again, don't draw a big distinction on that. How we define knowledge management here, and we really start with why is knowledge management even here at Ogletree? What's our purpose? What's our objective? And we've defined our mission as equipping and empowering our lawyers and staff to share and access knowledge and experience in order to deliver exceptional value to our clients and drive firm growth. And what's important to me personally is that phrase, deliver exceptional value to clients, is actually part of our client pledge that the firm has and that the firm defined prior to my joining the firm. And so to be able to take our knowledge management function and capabilities and tie that into something that's very near and dear to the hearts of our attorneys and to our clients, ultimately, that's something that we want to make sure that we're relevant in that regard. And we use a kind of a basic construct on how we execute that mission and that strategy that we have, which is a people, process, and technology. And then we like to add culture because we think culture plays a really big part on the soft side of knowledge management. That's everything from stakeholder engagement to the culture that we have on our knowledge management team and how we actually do our work. When I look at the actual pieces and parts of our knowledge management team, we kind of think about it in four buckets. In those four buckets, first is what we refer to as kind of just knowledge services. And knowledge services really is where we have our kind of former practicing attorneys that are there. We've got a KM counsel team that is really aligned to our practice groups, curating best practices content, some of the kind of what I would consider very traditional aspects of knowledge management. We also have a content counsel team that's actually generating content that is used to feed our client portal that we'll probably talk about here in just a little bit. And then we've also got what I would call a client program that focuses on delivering unique services to some of our premier clients. And so you might call that client segmentation as part of knowledge management, representing the greater services or portfolio of services, but having a very targeted focus toward our premier clients. The second bucket that we talk about is our KM Solutions. And this is the team that's really focused on our knowledge sharing and collaboration tools that we use not only internally, so our digital workspace, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about in a bit, but also our client-facing tools. We have a variety of tools that are client-facing that are also part of the scope of that team's responsibility. So it's a lot of product development, product and process management, and making sure that we're not only creating innovative tools and solutions, but also making sure that we're thinking about those things from a very strategic and client focused perspective. The third bucket we talk about is research. So our research services team is part of our scope of knowledge management. And that's a team that's really responsible for all the legal and business research for the firm. They also oversee what is, I'm sure, for many law firms, a very significant investment in our research subscriptions, in managing that, and making sure that we're really looking at what the return is on that investment. That's a significant investment for the firm. Those are big dollars. And so let's make sure that we're focused on awareness and adoption, that our attorneys are really taking advantage of these great tools that we subscribe to year over year. And then the fourth bucket, which is a relatively new capability, is what we call our data services. And this is has both an internal and a client-facing component that is leveraging our internal data, supplementing that, complementing that with public data where available. And then our client-facing is where we're actually getting data from our clients in support of our litigation and counseling services that we offer to our clients. And so a quick flyby of just kind of the four main buckets and how we define knowledge management here at Ogletree.
Well, you guys have had phenomenal growth. So Ogletree's been a client of ours for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And if I'm not mistaken, you've almost tripled in size. The team size has almost tripled since we first started with you guys. And I think that's due to, obviously, you had some predecessors that did some great work. You've come in and I think done a really interesting, taking an interesting angle and putting a lot of focus on culture. I think that's, in this pandemic era of, retention is such a difficult thing to manage, and growing a team, just maintaining a team has been a challenge over the last 2 or 3 years. And the fact that you guys have been able to grow the team is phenomenal. And you've taken some interesting approaches. Like, one thing that's, I think, unique about your team is you guys are revenue generating, right?
That's right.
KM is not just a cost center. And I don't know what you can share about your strategy there and how much that has fueled your team's growth, but whatever you're able to share there, I think is we'd love to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Our team is almost, not quite, but almost 3 times the size that it was when I joined the firm. And a lot of that is due to some new services and new capabilities that we've offered. And you mentioned Patrick at the beginning or at the top of the call here, and just really express my appreciation for Patrick. Knowledge management, I'm told, started around 2011 here at Ogletree, and I joined in 2020. And so, the old saying, it's easier to move a rolling stone than to get something started. And really, the great work that was done even before I got here really gave us a running start. And me personally, a running start to build upon that and to begin to take that to some new levels. But it would never have been possible without the great work of my predecessors. And so I'm eternally grateful to people like Patrick and other thought leaders like Evan Schenkman that really paved the way for knowledge management here at Ogletree. But to the point of revenue generating, over 40% of our team are actually timekeepers here. And so I want to be clear in how I, maybe share the context of that. I don't personally have a revenue bogey, and that the primary objective of this team isn't go, have a break-even model, or you need to, deliver 20% above your costs, or really none of that. And so I would say that much of what we do is a byproduct of of serving our clients, whether that be through client-facing tools, whether that be by supporting our litigation and counseling services that we offer. Our data analytics team is a great example of that, where we're actually taking client data, doing the analysis in support of our litigation and counseling to those clients. And it's been a team that's grown substantially over the last 3 years. It's a relatively new capability that we have here at Ogletree, and it's really resonated with our clients. And so it's continues to grow, and we're really pleased with our ability to support our attorneys in that service and in that capability. Our research services also has a component of their work that's also, flows through to our clients and is billable work as well. And then I would say the last area is one of our recent developments, a client portal that we launched. It's a subscription-based service that's available. It has some pretty unique and exciting principles from a knowledge management standpoint, but from our client's perspective, the ability to subscribe at a pretty nominal cost and get wonderful, accurate, timely, compliance-related content for all 50 states is pretty impressive and has been a major investment for the firm. It's actually been the firm's largest innovation project in the firm's history. And we're really excited. We launched it in May and really thrilled. It's actually exceeded expectations to date, and we're excited about the trajectory that it's on.
Yeah, and it's not it's not a new concept. I mean, I heard, God, this is going back probably 10, 12 years. Meredith, she was then Williams. I think it's Williams Range now. I think she just might have made a move, but back in her Baker Donaldson days, she presented on ILTA maybe 2012, 2013. They were doing something along those same lines, offering almost as kind of a SaaS, subscription model. I think what is interesting about Ogletree is you guys have such a tight focus for a firm your size. Like, obviously, I don't know, maybe labor and employment is unique, but there are not a lot of firms your size outside of labor and employment. Like, you've got the Littlers and, the Jackson Lewis and, Fisher Phillips and you guys, and you're all 500 plus attorney firms really focus on kind of one practice area. I don't see that a lot outside of labor and employment. Is it just because, I mean, clearly there's a ton of need, but is there something unique about that area of law that allows firms to get to that size, like AmLaw size, and just focus on labor and employment?
I mean, that's a great question. And, as a non-attorney, I'm not sure I would be the authoritative voice on being able to answer that question. But I think the fact that our firm is very focused in specific practice areas that are part of labor and employment and immigration allows us to go deeper and, develop I would say a strength of relationship with our clients that becomes very trusted. And so I think there are unique opportunities as a labor and employment law firm to deliver a set of services, have that level of focus. From a knowledge management standpoint, I can only imagine that simplifies our remit, right? To really focus in this one area versus a broader, more multidisciplinary law firm where knowledge management would have to really divide that focus across practice groups. And coming from really large organizations, Grant Thornton, Deloitte, Arthur Andersen, I'm very familiar with the challenges that exist when you have a very broad set of portfolio. Even how knowledge management is defined at those firms varies, as whether you're in audit, whether you're a tax professional, or whether you're in consulting. And even within consulting, that definition or where value can be delivered can be defined differently. So I would carry that same premise into a multidisciplinary firm, that what's going to resonate in one practice area may look dramatically different. And that's those are challenges to try and staff and meet and exceed the needs of your people, and then again, extension to your clients as well.
Yeah, I'm in a group called the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we have a saying, the riches are in the niches, right? So, and especially us here at InfoDash, formerly AcroWire. I mean, we serve a niche within a niche, right? We're kind of
Right.
intranet, extranet, that we're really rebranding as collaboration. The intranet, extranet terminology is so dated. It's like people say intranet, they think, okay, where do I go submit my PTO request?
Right.
Or
Right.
extranet, how do I share some files with, like, those terms we're starting to de-emphasize those and instead talk more broad, and they've been siloed, right? So
Right.
the incumbent vendors in the intranet space have had zero traction in the extranet space, and vice versa.
Right.
And so at InfoDash, our vision is to unify collaboration and get rid of those silos and get rid of those terminologies, because there's just so much that collaboration means so much more than what that legacy terminology really implies.
Right.
But we've been
I,
sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
just going to say one of the things, and kind of that word collaboration, one of the values that we've tried to embrace is, and as I kind of outlined the different aspects of our knowledge management teams, it really represents a set of skills and capabilities that are coming at challenges or solutions from very different perspectives. And so we've really tried to embrace, the idea of diversity as it's typically or traditionally defined, but also, even looking at diversity of skills. And we think that our ability to bring those varied skills together to solve problems is actually part of the secret sauce as well, right? And kind of the power of the matrix, when you begin to bring these things together from different perspectives, it really adds to the excitement. It adds to the quality of the solutions that we're looking to build. And even just some of the demographics of our team, over 70% of our team has been here at Ogletree less than 2 years. So, bringing in that diversity of thought has really been, I think, incredibly helpful. In the same breath, earlier today, I sent a message out on Teams congratulating one of our team members for celebrating 24 years with Ogletree Deakins. So that's a pretty high bar for the rest of us. Take a while for the rest of us to catch up. But I think it's having that varied perspective that we try to bring to our the solutions or the challenges that we're trying to address is also incredibly helpful. So there's an element where we're very focused, but there's also an element where we've tried to expand at least the thoughts, the competencies, the skills, the expertise. And that also ties to even our relationship, Ted, that we need the expertise that resides outside of our organization and realize, hey, it's not just all on our shoulders. We need to tap into where there is expertise that can challenge our thinking, help us look at things differently, and be more creative, more innovative along those lines. So I hope that's helpful
Yeah.
in kind of some of the things that are important to us as part of our program.
No, indeed. I think that, the partnership that we've had with Ogletree over the years, I mean, you guys are, and this is real easy to say, oh, Ted's customer, he's trying to flatter him, but it's absolutely true. And it, and I know it, that Ogletree was a huge influencer in the development of InfoDash. So just for a little bit of history, this is a good segue into the next part of the conversation that I wanted to talk about, which was kind of build versus buy,
Right.
right? And, we don't have a ton of competition in the space. Our biggest competitor really is firms that decide to just go custom dev. And usually if we have a conversation before there's a ton of investment in that path, it's easy to make a case. I mean, our licensing is going to be way less than one full-time employee in all likelihood, except for the biggest firms.
Right.
So it's easy to make a case of why they might want to consider an alternative path. But for just a little bit of history, so we started off as AcroWire, and we had what we called the gadget framework, which was the foundation of what is today InfoDash. And when we partnered with OD in 2019, I think it was, we expressed our interest in continuing development, and you guys said, we really like this as a starting point, and we'll continue to help build that. So over time, we were unified. The code, there was one code base, right? It was the gadget framework code base. And then over time, Ogletree started to have some unique requirements and had, there was a fork in the road. It was very closely aligned, right? What you see today in OD Connect is very similar to what you see in InfoDash, but at the end of the day, there were really two code bases. And we, over time, I think you guys, because it was not a true out of the box version of the product, there became some pain points with that, right? Like there were, updates or even support of issues there were internal resource requirements on your side that became onerous. And so recently you guys made the decision to transition so that you're on the InfoDash code base. And if you wouldn't mind, was that a result of there was just a backlog of new initiatives that you couldn't get to because of the maintenance task, or was it a philosophical build versus buy? What really kind of drove that decision?
Yeah, I wish I could say, there was a, go to the mountaintop experience that, influenced our thinking. But I think at the end of the day, it's this continual assessment of what is highest and best use of our people's time. And when I say our people, it's not just knowledge management, but it's also the other administrative departments within the firm that are involved in our various initiatives and projects. And most probably at the top of that list is our IT department. And so there's always this kind of rebalancing of highest and best use of our time in the context of what other projects are happening within the firm, resource constraints and bandwidth that's available, dollars that are available from a budget perspective. And so I wish I had a magic algorithm that I could put in values and it cranks out and tells me what to do. But a lot of this is also based on trust that we have with the vendors that we work with. And even the word vendor feels a little odd to me. I'd rather call it partners. And certainly, Ted, you and your organization have been a great partner for us. And it's the ability to have those conversations where maybe it's uncharted territory, or maybe it's exploratory in nature, to be able to say, well, what if we could look at this? What if we could do that? And I think as we begin looking at OD Connect, our digital workspace here that you built for us, there came a point that the highest and best use of our IT department's time was less around trying to support this single solution, based again on a variety of factors of what is the highest and best use of their time, giving other projects, other demands, bandwidth constraints, all those types of things. And then having a trusted partner that when you enter into those conversations, they're instead of feeling like you're jumping off a cliff or stepping into the great unknown, you're basically locking arms with your partner and saying, we're going to figure out the right solution. And that's been that's a big part. I can't underscore the importance of that enough, that when we work with partners, we place a very high premium on shared values. And so it looks like looking in the mirror when we work with you and with your team and other vendors that we work with. That's really important to us. And so when we look at projects, we're always looking at things like, what are the variable factors here? Timing. So what's the velocity and speed? How quickly do we have to solve this problem? Scope of features. So is that flexible? Can we decrease scope to get it out faster? And then obviously we're all confined by cost and dollars, right? That are part of that. And then I think some other things that I've mentioned are things like resource availability within knowledge management and our other departments. And then also having clarity on the value and benefits delivered. And so there's always it's this constant rebalancing and rethinking that, and I think today I have to do that even more frequently than I've ever had to. And if we're going to value things like speed, velocity, agility, transparency, that's something that's always something that we have to come back and reassess. And what we thought maybe didn't make sense earlier, now it makes sense because there's some new factors that are introduced, or there's some new demands, or there's some new expectations and new priorities that exist.
Yeah. And, Ogletree OD Connect version 1 was an award winner, right? That was
right
before your time.
That's right.
OD Connect 2 won ILTA's Transformative Project of the Year. Or is it Innovative? I can't remember that name.
Transformative Project.
Transformative.
Yeah,
okay.
You had it.
Last year. So you guys, and the firm was very upfront with us in the beginning and said, hey, we're swinging for the fences. And that's like, as a partner, that really gets us excited, right? Because
Sure.
we know there's going to be investment from the firm, not just like in terms of money, but in terms of like thought around user adoption and user experience and capabilities and all of those sorts of things. So it was a great partnership from our perspective too. So what do you guys expect to derive moving from a kind of a custom solution to more of an out of the box? How, and we're still in the middle of the transition, right? So we don't know, but like from an expectation perspective, what's the expected impact?
Well, maybe at its most basic level is stability, right? And so as InfoDash is making updates addressing any bugs or minor break fixes or things like that, maybe because of new features that have been rolled out from Microsoft or other factors, knowing that we can rely on it being a stable platform is probably the fundamental value that we see existing there. But I also think, I mentioned speed and velocity. We place a high premium on that to get those enhancements right when they roll off the manufacturing line, right? So, those get implemented, they've been tested, they're adding value, and our ability to incorporate that or have that available for our users immediately is also something that we place a high value on and a premium as well. And then it also frees us up to see, okay, are there any gaps that exist, or are there things that we want to go explore? And those can be in addition to, so, working with you on different proof of concepts that are continuing to look a little bit out further on the horizon. Hey, we had an idea about this or that. Hey, would you be willing to partner and explore this? And so I think what it frees us up to do is to rely on the stability. It gives us, it guarantees that we're going to be on the latest iteration, deriving benefit from the latest enhancements. And so that alone, but I think this other piece that says, okay, now that frees us up to look at some other things out on the horizon and what's next. We're excited about it. I mean, as we began to talk about this earlier, Ted, not only was my heart rate starting to increase and I was getting increasingly excited, but I could see the members of our KM team also just like, this makes perfect sense. It wasn't even a debatable topic. It just was so self-evident that this is what we needed to do. And again, being able to rely on a trusted partner was the foundation that really freed us up to have that exploratory conversation.
And going back to the riches are in the niches, because we're so married to legal can't, like, we can't have a whiff. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right,
you
right.
deliver one bad experience in the legal KM world, and that universe is so small, it spreads like wildfire. So, I mean, we bend over back. We have to, and it's not just us. It's really any vendor or partner that really focuses in on a small audience. If we were industry agnostic, okay, we have a whiff in legal, big deal. We serve 15 other industries. It's like, no, it's a huge deal if we have a
Right.
whiff. So we can't let that happen. And I think that, that dictates our philosophy on things and making customers
Certainly.
happy.
That's
Um,
great.
so the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is a nice segue because you'd mentioned um, capabilities within the M365 arena, and I wanted to talk just a little bit as a last topic about Microsoft alignment.
Hmm.
And OD is, and I'm using, I hope this is acceptable for us to talk about, but you guys adopt M365. Your M365 adoption is exceptional. And I mean, so between AcroWire and InfoDash, we've done business with almost half. It's north of 45% of the AmLaw, right? So I've had a sneak peek into a lot of different KM departments,
Right.
and I can say that you guys are near or at the top of the list in terms of your adoption. And I mean, that shines true even with now there's Copilot conversations going on,
Right.
and Power BI, and what has driven that, and Viva, we've been talking about Viva
Yep.
as well.
Exactly. Yep.
So it's a great fit for us, right? Because we're married to the Microsoft stack, right? So InfoDash is built on SharePoint Online, leverages Azure, hybrid connectivity from Microsoft. Like, we're married. So and many law firms are, but there's different, there's kind of a continuum of adoption. And a lot of firms, we're still seeing this. It's still a struggle. I've been beating the M365 cloud since 2014. I mean, I did a roadshow in literally 2013 or 2014 about what's new in SharePoint Online, and but firms are just finally starting. AmLaw firms are just
Sure.
finally just start. They've already moved messaging. Many are full cloud or at least hybrid in the exchange part of the world, because that's usually the first step
Sure.
into the M365 universe. But now firms are starting to move, content and collaboration, which is SharePoint and Teams. They're starting to even look at OneDrive in specific use cases. You guys like using
Right.
Teams for telephony, and like, what has driven that Microsoft? You guys, again, being pretty far right on the spectrum of adoption, what has driven that?
Well, first I'd sing the praise of my partner CIO, Ken Schultz, is just a very innovative thinker and adopter of technology that's relevant. And so our one of the things that's important to me is making sure that whatever we're doing in knowledge management aligns with other strategic decisions within the firm. So our IT strategy is very Microsoft centric. It makes no sense for me to go a different direction. The expert in our firm, our CIO, has picked a lane for us, and I love that lane. So I can share my own personal experience with that, but that actually simplifies the world for us because it is a swim lane. I don't have to go figure out half a dozen different things or play in this pool over here or this one over here. It has allowed us to narrow, which then allows us to go deep and at a velocity that you can't do if you don't have that clarity of an IT strategy and platform. And so, I can't say enough good things about our CIO here, Ken Schultz. He's just a delight to partner with and work with. Then from a knowledge management standpoint is how do we take advantage of all of the opportunities that exist then within that platform. And I had the pleasure where I worked previously at Grant Thornton was an early adopter of Microsoft 365 or Office 365 back in the day. And so I was personally benefiting from a very aggressive approach to Office 365. And so in many ways, I spoke the language when I got here and was able to then, kind of pick up what our IT department was providing for us and see how we could take advantage of that. And so where we can take advantage of and build upon things that Microsoft's putting out there. You mentioned Viva. That's certainly something that we see an opportunity to deliver value to our attorneys here and run a proof of concept there and see how we can get that baked in. We think there's great opportunities. You mentioned Copilot. That's part of our generative AI strategy, which we've had the pleasure in knowledge management to help define what our generative AI strategy will be for the firm. And a big part of that is, embracing Copilot. We think that's eventually going to just be table stakes for many of the law firms that are out there. But given our position with Microsoft, it makes complete sense. Almost self-evident that that's something that we need to embrace and explore and do that as quickly as we can. But we're big Power BI users for data visualization. That's both internally as well as with our clients. Our clients have found that to be incredibly helpful in representing a lot of their content and their data. But it's also helpful in things like matter management, in creating dashboards and making sure that we're running our matters, especially our portfolio accounts, very profitably, and keeping a close eye on those things. And then also, again, I mentioned, with our data analytics capability, looking at our internal data and supplementing that with a lot of the publicly available content or data that's available. The Power Platform, using that for RPA, and we see lots of opportunities from an automation standpoint. Our chatbot that was award winner that you referenced earlier, again on the Microsoft platform using Q&A Maker, and as we begin to look at what's the next iteration of that. Again, probably a Microsoft first view to see how that makes sense. You called out Teams, knowledge management. We are across 5 different time zones, and so our ability to work collaboratively, and you mentioned it earlier, I joined right in the heart of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I worked at this firm for over a year before I met many of my team members in person. And so it forced us to have to embrace a lot of the collaborative technologies, and certainly Microsoft has helped us dramatically. Even on the back end side, using ADO as part of our user stories and bug tracking and managing UAT have all been readily available solutions for us to take and drive forward. And so it'll continue to be a big focus for us, and creatively thinking about how we can use those tools to solve problems. Again, not just because it's cool technology or it's a big shiny thing, which I love cool technology and shiny things, easily distracted, but really coming back to driving it to how are we adding value, how are we adding benefit, and really, really bringing that lens of pressing in on solving our clients' needs and challenges.
I think as people, in the technology space, we all suffer from ADSO, which is attention deficit. Ooh, shiny object. It's
squirrel.
Yeah, it's just I used to work for Microsoft 23 years ago. I started off on the Microsoft Access and then transitioned into the SQL Server support team. And so, I'm intimately familiar and have been, and even before that, I was a consultant doing, application development in the 90s. So I've seen the evolution, and I've always been, it's not, Microsoft's not perfect, but in the legal services space, there is such a, lawyers live in Outlook and Word. I mean, they spend an inordinate amount of time there. So it is Microsoft is a natural fit. Like, I don't see firms in Google Apps, at least AmLaw firms, Google Apps and Slack. And I do see a little bit of, Zoom chat or Jabber. But I mean, I think that the case for Teams is going to be harder and harder to dismiss. Just again, depends on how far down the path how invested these firms are.
Yeah, and I think another element that maybe doesn't get top billing, because people aren't going to, or rarely are they going to create documents or modify documents using their phone. But the mobile aspect of this is important, and whether that's on a tablet, whether that's on a phone, it'll never. I shouldn't say never say never, right? It'll be a long time before it supersedes working on laptops and multi screens, as I've got 3 of them in front of me here. I don't know that it will necessarily replace that. But if I'm sitting at the airport waiting on my flight and the client has a question for me, the ability to deliver all of those tools and access all of that content through that mobile device all of a sudden becomes job number one, becomes absolutely critical in our ability to respond to our clients. And so, again, that may only happen once every couple of months, or maybe it happens more frequently as we're traveling more. But you can't underscore the importance of that enough when the client calls and you need something immediately. It's a little harder to say, okay, well, let me go to the Crown Room here, or the Admiral's Club, and boot up my computer and try to do that before the flight leaves here. The ability to access that anytime, anywhere, on any device is part of what we're trying to solve.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're bought into that as well. I mean, InfoDash is built using the SharePoint Modern UI framework that's responsive out of the box.
Right.
It's not InfoDash functionality. It's Microsoft. So we believe in that too. So this has been great, Dave. I really appreciate you taking some time. I don't think I'm going to see you in Orlando, but are you guys going to make it to Cam and I, or?
We will. We absolutely will be there. And my loss for not being able to get to ILTA next week, but honored to be asked to participate on one of your coffee chats here, and always great to connect with you, Ted. It's a pleasure. You've been an incredibly valuable partner and friend on a personal note. So thank you for that, and great to connect.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the kind words. Thank you very much. We'll definitely look forward to seeing you in New York, and we'll be thinking about you in Orlando.
Sounds great. Thanks, Ted.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to Legal Innovation Spotlight. If you found value in this chat, hit the subscribe button to be notified when we release new episodes. We'd also really appreciate it if you could take a moment to rate us and leave us a review wherever you're listening right now. Your feedback helps us provide you with top-notch content. Want to dive deeper into the world of legal innovation? Connect with us online at getinfodash.com, where you'll find additional resources and articles. You can also follow us on social media at getinfodash to stay updated on the latest news and insights in the field of legal tech and knowledge management. Once again, thank you for joining us today on Legal Innovation Spotlight, a fireside chat series hosted by InfoDash.